how Jehovah helped in the conquest of the Promised Land, being able to see how we can apply it to ourselves, and certainly we'll enjoy a lot of comments related to that too from all that are prepared for that. We'll also get a chance to look at the value of our fellow believers and how we can use them and benefit from their experience as well in our ministry with discussion and video. For our local needs this week, we're actually going to be doing the governing body update number 8, so some beautiful reminders and encouragement that we'll have there to benefit from as well. And then our Bible study will really drive home for us the meaning of Ezekiel's temple vision and what that means for us. So a lot of good things we look forward to. And to get us started, we're going to give our attention to Brother Neely this morning, or today, with Jehovah Fights for Israel.
I'll be with you. I'll neither desert you nor abandon you. Be courageous and strong. Jehovah said these words to Joshua after the death of Moses. As Israel's new leader, Joshua would need to hear these reassuring words, because establishing Israel's rightful place in the Promised Land was not going to be easy. In this week's Bible reading, we're introduced to King Adonizedek. He was king of Jerusalem before the Israelites conquered it and turned it into their central place of worship. When he found out that nearby city Gibeon made peace with the invading Israelites, he panicked, or as our Bible reading this week says, became greatly alarmed, because now Israel was going to be larger and mightier and more powerful than ever before. But rather than making peace with Israel like Gibeon did, King Adonizedek formed a coalition with 4 other kingdoms to attack Gibeon out of retaliation, hopefully to weaken Israel. Notice this described in Joshua chapter 10, verse 5. It's Joshua 10:5. You might want to keep your Bibles open here, as we'll be considering several verses from this chapter. It reads, "At this, 5 kings of the Amorites, the king of Jerusalem, the king of Hebron, the king of Jarmuth, the king of Lachish, and the king of Eglon, gathered together along with their armies, and they marched on and encamped against Gibeon to fight against it." Bad move by these 5 kingdoms. Because when Joshua found out what they were doing, verse 7 says, Joshua gathered all his fighting men and mighty warriors to wage war against the coalition, which certainly says a lot, not only about Joshua's loyalty to Gibeon, but also his leadership and faith in Jehovah as well, doesn't it? But still, fighting against 5 kingdoms at once is no easy task. So how would Joshua do it? How would Joshua defeat the coalition? He wouldn't. Jehovah would. For instance, Jehovah says to Joshua in verse 8, "Do not be afraid of these kingdoms, for I've handed them over to you. Not one of them will be able to stand up against you." Reassuring words. But again, how? How would Jehovah hand over the coalition Joshua? Well, verse 10 and 11 tells us. Verse 10 says, "Jehovah threw them," that is the coalition, "into confusion before Israel, and they inflicted a great slaughter on them at Gibeon, pursuing them by way of the ascent of Beth-horon, and striking them down as far as Ezekiel and Makkedah. While they were fleeing from Israel and were on the descent of Beth-horon, Jehovah hurled great hailstones from the sky on them as far as Ezekiel, and they perished. In fact, more died from the hail than from the sword of the Israelites." When Joshua originally decided to defend Gibeon and fight against the coalition, you think he knew that Jehovah was going to intervene like that? You think he knew Jehovah was going to miraculously throw the coalition into a supernatural state of confusion? You think he knew that Jehovah was going to hurl great hailstones down from the sky? You think he knew such details? Don't think so. All Joshua knew was that Jehovah somehow, some way, was going to be with him. Exactly how? He didn't know. He just knew he would. So for Joshua to once again see Jehovah's undeniable presence and miraculous support must have been very faith-strengthening, and possibly what led him to feel comfortable enough to ask Jehovah for the impossible. Notice what Joshua asked Jehovah for in verses 12 and 14. It was then, on the day that Jehovah routed the Amorites before the eyes of the Israelites, that Joshua said to Jehovah before Israel, Sun, stand still over Gibeon, and moon over the valley of Ajalon. So the sun stood still, and the moon did not move until the nation could take vengeance on its enemies. Is it not written in the book of Jashar? The sun stood still in the middle of the sky and did not hasten to set for a whole day. There has never been a day like that one, either before it or after it, when Jehovah listened to the voice of a man, for Jehovah was fighting for Israel. What an amazing account. Can you imagine what it must have felt like as an Israelite soldier to see Jehovah making the sun and the moon stand still so you had extra time and light to defeat the enemy? For instance, notice Joshua and the Israelites here in our first image. Look at their facial expressions. Do you see fear or concern in their eyes as they run towards an army comprised of 5 kingdoms? No. You see faith and you see courage, because they know for an absolute certainty that Jehovah is with them. They're going to win. They are going to win the fight. So what does this account teach us? Well, like Israel, soon we're going to establish our place, not in a promised new land, but in a promised new world. But getting there, it's not going to be easy. Soon, a coalition, not of 5 kingdoms, but of all the world's governments, are going to wage war against us because, like King Adonizedek, they're going to be greatly alarmed by our worldwide unity and devotion to the true and living God, Jehovah. So, how will we do it? How will we, who make up less than 1% of the world's population, defend ourselves against this great coalition of governments? We won't. Jehovah will. In fact, right now, Jehovah is defending his individual worshipers as a sign that he'll soon defend all of us. For instance, notice our second image. You know who that is? That's Brother Sergei Kilmov. He was arrested by Russian law enforcement simply for being one of Jehovah's Witnesses. He's been in either pre-trial detention or prison since 2018 and is currently serving a 6-year sentence, similar to that of Brother Dennis Christensen. But like the first image of Joshua and the Israelites, look at Sergei's facial expression. You see fear or concern in his eyes? No. You see faith and you see courage, because he knows for an absolute certainty that Jehovah is with him and that he's going to win. He is going to win the fight, the fine fight. You think he knows exactly how? You think he knows the details? Don't think so. All he knows is that somehow, some way, Jehovah's going to be with him. So when we're one day experiencing persecution, let's be like Joshua and not hesitate to ask Jehovah for the impossible, the power beyond what is normal, the mind of Christ, the ability to see the things not yet beheld. And like Sergei, may we continue to remain faithful and courageous, knowing that our labor is not in vain, knowing that our suffering will turn out for a witness, knowing that with Jehovah's help, we're going to win the fight. If we can take this week's reading to heart and make it our determination to apply the lessons that we've learned thus far, Jehovah's words to Joshua I'll be with you. I'll neither desert you nor abandon you, will apply to us too.
Well, Brother Mealy, we certainly enjoyed a beautiful start to our program today. Very faith-strengthening, isn't it, for us to look at the accounts in the past and see how they can apply and will apply in the future. Thank you for that. Now let's give attention to our spiritual gems from Joshua chapters 10 and 11, and then Brother Nubo will take care of that for us.
Looking forward to hearing all of the spiritual gems that were dug up this week. But to begin, if I can get a reader for the book of Joshua, chapter 10 and verse 13. Could read that for us. Sister Radford, please. Brother Radford.
Joshua 10:13 says, "So the sun stood still, and the moon did not move until the nation could take vengeance on its enemies. Is it not written in the book of Jashar? The sun stood still in the middle of the sky and did not hasten to set for about a whole day."
Thank you, Brother Radford. And notice our question. It asks, why do we not need to know what was in the book of Jashar? Brother Millar.
Yeah, and it's, even though this book is mentioned in God's inspired word, the Bible, there's really no reason for us to think that this book is actually inspired of God. And the reason is we know that Jehovah has included everything that we need within the 66 books of the Bible to be fully competent, completely equipped for every good work, like it says in 2 Timothy.
Thank you. Sister Campbell.
And much like today, how there's many historical books that are accurate, but they do not necessarily, they don't appear in the Bible, so they're not inspired by God. So we can use them for reference, but it wouldn't be considered part of the Bible.
Thank you. Notice our next question. What spiritual gems from this week's Bible reading would you like to share regarding Jehovah, the field ministry, or something else? Sister Mealy?
In Joshua chapter 10, verse 6, the men of Gibeon send word to Joshua, and they ask for help to be rescued after hearing about this group of kings that were coming together to attack them. And I thought it was interesting that the Gibeonites were essentially new in the truth. Even though they were a nation of warriors, their initial response was not to try to fight off this attack for themselves. They immediately turned to Jehovah for help, and Jehovah took note of their faith, and they were rescued. So this reminded me that Jehovah's saving power is not limited to years in the truth. Jehovah takes note of and blesses our individual acts of faith, no matter how long we've been serving him.
Very good. Brother Ortiz.
In Joshua chapter 11, verse 18, it mentions Joshua waged war with these kings for quite some time. So it might be discouraging for the Israelites, having been slaves, then being in the desert for 40 years, and now having to wage war for a long time. But still, they had Jehovah's backing, as we brought out in the beginning. So likewise, we today, we have to endure many years. We're close to the end, but we also have Jehovah's backing, so we're almost there.
Good reminder. Brother Manzia.
Joshua chapter 11, verse 20, it speaks about how Jehovah allowed their hearts to become stubborn. And the Canaanites at that time clearly saw that Jehovah was blessing the Israelites, but Jehovah did not force them to change. Rather, they remained stubborn. So the lesson I took from this was today as well, we see clear evidence of Jehovah's blessing on his organization, on his people, but it's up to us to take advantage of these provisions and to live in harmony with Jehovah's standards, and Jehovah will not force us to do his will.
Sister Corrections.
In Joshua 10:8, we see that Jehovah assured Joshua that he would prevail in his mission, his rescue mission, against those enemy forces that were seeking to harm the Gibeonites. And that really highlighted for me that Jehovah really accepted the contract that the Gibeonites had made with the Israelites in chapter 9. And that showed that even though the Gibeonites were not his chosen people originally, Jehovah was loyal to that contract. He also showed flexibility and impartiality. And I want to imitate those qualities.
Thank you. Brother Cox.
By carrying out the command at Joshua 11:6 to hamstring the horses, Joshua showed that he didn't lean on his own understanding or his own strength. And so how can we hamstring the horses, as it were, in our life? Well, when we face somewhat smaller challenges in our day-to-day life, like finding a job or dealing with a bully at school, instead of trying to solve these problems on our own, we can imitate Joshua by fully relying on Jehovah, praying for help, looking for Bible principles to apply, and trusting that Jehovah is going to take care of us.
Sister Velez, sorry.
I like chapter 11, verse 7. It says that Joshua, together with all the fighting men, they launched a surprise attack. So we know any teamwork always requires planning and coordination. And even though Jehovah just told them that they get support from Jehovah, they didn't stay still. They get together and they plan and they did their part. And same applies to us now. Every time we pray, we know Jehovah is going to answer our prayers, but we need to do our part too.
Very true. Brother Nunez.
In Joshua 11:6, Jehovah tells Joshua, do not be afraid. And I thought this is super awesome, Jehovah's part, because up to this point, Joshua had conquered like 14 kings, like a super spiritual man. But Jehovah didn't think, he doesn't need to hear this. He's got this. But instead, Jehovah still comforted Joshua, let him know that he was on his side. And it just reminds me that for us, no matter how much time we have in the truth, no matter how mature we are, no matter what we've done for Jehovah, Jehovah's always going to have our back. He's always going to be like, he's got this. He doesn't need my help. He doesn't need my comfort. Jehovah will always be there to comfort us, help us, and guide us.
Sister Radford.
Yeah, Joshua 11:15 highlights the importance of the training because it says, just as Jehovah had commanded Moses, Moses commanded Joshua, so Joshua did. And also we see the good reputation of Joshua, of his obedience, because it says that he left nothing undone. So what a good example for all of us.
Very nice. Sister Millar.
In chapter 10, verse 2, it says that Gibeon was a great city, greater than Ai, and all its men were warriors, and excavators even found a tunnel cut through solid rock that led from just within Gibeon to a man-made reservoir fed by a spring below the city wall. This ensured the Gibeonites a safe water supply, even in time of siege. But despite their military strength and the greatness of their city, they knew they would fail because Jehovah was fighting for Israel. So for us, we may have abilities or circumstances that make it seem like we can handle situations or challenges ourselves. But we should imitate the Gibeonites and realize that we must work along with Jehovah's will to be successful.
Brother Godfrey?
We see that in chapter 10, Jehovah really sets an excellent example in humility for us. Verse 14 had mentioned that there had never been a day like that one, and no doubt because of the fantastic thing that had happened that day with the sun standing still. But this was not an idea of Jehovah's, but rather it was something that Joshua had asked him to do. And we see that the verse 14 also makes specific mention that Jehovah listened to the voice of a man. To put that in perspective, for us, it'd be like taking the advice or listening to the idea of someone who has already displayed faulty thinking. That's really the level that Jehovah's at as our God and Creator. But rather than deny Joshua's request to brush him off, he decided to listen to him and demonstrated that he's capable of stepping down to us and listening to our ideas. So how much more so should we be willing to take the advice to listen closely to the things that our fellow brothers and sisters are telling us and offering us?
Thank you. We have time for one more comment. Sister Johnson, can we hear your comment, please?
I appreciated Joshua 10 through 12, where it says that Jehovah threw their enemies into confusion. They hurled great hailstones at them, and the sun and moon stood still. These scriptures made me think of times in my life when seemingly unsurmountable odds were stacked against me, and I didn't know the way out. But Jehovah brought me through them. Though not in miraculous ways like these, but in some ways it appeared to be a miracle to me. I try to remember Bible accounts like these to build my faith that Jehovah will always care for his people in whatever way he sees fit, and it's possible he will care for us in ways we could have never imagined possible.
Thank you for all your comments. Now let's give our attention back to our chairman.
Well, thank you, Bill. Certainly all those beautiful comments. It's amazing to see the variety and really how many gems we can pick out from just a couple of chapters in Joshua that benefit us daily and looking forward as well. Now we're going to give our attention to Bible reading next from Joshua chapter 10, verses 1 through 15, and we'll listen to Brother Godfrey for that.
As soon as King Adonizedek of Jerusalem heard that Joshua had captured Ai and devoted it to destruction, doing to Ai and its king, just as he had done to Jericho and its king, and how the inhabitants of Gibeon had made peace with Israel and remained among them, he was greatly alarmed, because Gibeon was a great city, like one of the royal cities. It was greater than Ai, and all its men were warriors. So Adonizedek of Jerusalem sent this message to Hoham, king of Hebron, Piram, king of Jarmuth, Japhiah, king of Lachish, and Deber, king of Eglon. Come to my aid, and let us attack Gibeon, because it has made peace with Joshua and the Israelites. At this, the 5 kings of the Amorites, the king of Jerusalem, the king of Hebron, the king of Jarmuth, the king of Lachish, and the king of Eglon, gathered together along with their armies, and they marched on and encamped against Gibeon to fight against it. Then the men of Gibeon sent word to Joshua at the camp at Gilgal, "Do not forsake your slaves. Come quickly. Rescue us and help us. All the kings of the Amorites from the mountainous region have gathered against us." So Joshua went up from Gilgal with all the fighting men and the mighty warriors. Jehovah then said to Joshua, "Do not be afraid of them, for I have handed them over to you. Not one of them will be able to stand against you." Joshua came against them by surprise after marching all night long from Gilgal. Jehovah threw them into confusion before Israel, and they inflicted a great slaughter on them at Gibeon, pursuing them by way of ascent of Beth-horon, and striking them down as far as Ezekiel and Makkedah. While they were fleeing from Israel and were on the ascent of Beth-horon, Jehovah hurled great hailstones from the sky on them as far as Ezekiel, and they perished. In fact, more died from the hail than from the sword of the Israelites. It was then, on the day that Jehovah routed the Amorites before the eyes of the Israelites, that Joshua said to Jehovah before Israel, "Sun, stand still over Gibeon, and moon, over the valley of Ajalon." So the sun stood still, and the moon did not move until the nation could take vengeance on its enemies. Is it not written in the book of Jashar? The sun stood still in the middle of the sky, and did not hasten to set for about a whole day. There has never been a day like that one, either before it or after it, when Jehovah listened to the voice of a man, for Jehovah was fighting for Israel. After that, Joshua, together with all Israel, returned to the camp at Gilgal.
Well, Godfrey, we certainly appreciated that. Beautiful reading. Certainly nice accounts as well that we enjoyed. And when you're ready, you put nice meaning into it. The point you're working on today was on semi-tenor modulation. And we understand how important that is. As if you got a chance to watch the video related to that, it talks about how if we just hear one tone over and over again, the meaning is lost. So we're trying to vary our volume, our pitch, our pace, in ways that really impart meaning, especially to the reading. And I thought you did a nice job with that. When you're reading, for example, Joshua's prayer to Jehovah to let the sun stand still, you gave a little more power. You slowed down a little bit to really make those words stand out. give a meeting as no doubt Joshua would have done at that time. And there's other places throughout your meeting you did slow down a little bit, gave a little more power in different spots, just to vary the volume, vary the pace so that it was easy to listen to. And you sort of did a nice job of making that meeting stand out. So we thank you very much for that. Well, now we want to move on to our applying yourself to the field ministry portion of our meeting. And to start that, we have the part, increase your joy in the ministry, accept help from fellow workers. Let's give our attention to Linda Campbell for this part.
Imagine you're hiking along a mountain trail. Now the trail can be challenging at times, and you're not sure exactly which way to go. But you're also not scared because you're not alone. You've brought a friend who has more experience with hiking and knows the trail very well. Now between the two of you, you're able to make it to the top of the mountain and back down safely. You know, sometimes having a progressive Bible study with ones can be likened to that mountain trail. It can be challenging at times. We may not know the best place to start, what to say, or what will help our students to progress. But thankfully, we have experienced guides that can help us along the way. Our brothers and sisters, the ones in our congregation, our friends. Now, the Apostle Paul, he knew this well. If we take a look at Acts chapter 18, verses 1 through 5, and we're not going to read the whole scripture here, but just notice that he names a few of his friends, his brothers and sisters. He mentions Aquila and Priscilla. They helped him with secular work and also with the field ministry. And then if we take a look at verse 5, he says, both Silas and Timothy, they came down from Macedonia, and Paul began to be intensely occupied with the word, or intensely busy with preaching and teaching ones, witnessing to the Jews to prove that Jesus is the Christ. So these four brothers and sisters, friends of Paul and others, helped him in his field ministry and with his assignment. Fellow workers, they can help us by giving us practical suggestions on how to overcome objections, make good progressive return visits. They even help us on our Bible studies, showing personal interest in our students. So we have to remember, everyone in the congregation, old and young, elders, ministerial servants, pioneers, and publishers, everyone has experience and something to offer. And most importantly, they can show love to our Bible students. Now, how can we show this in a practical way? How can our brothers and sisters help us? Let's watch a video, Experience the Joy of Disciple Making, Accept Jehovah's Help, Our Brothers. And afterwards, we have a few questions to discuss.
I've tried everything to get Jade to a meeting. It's every Thursday and Sunday, and I think you'd really enjoy it.
I can't promise anything.
It would be nice if you could come. I might just text her actually, just to remind her. Excellent.
Have you tried bringing other people on the study?
Well, maybe not everything. What are you doing tomorrow afternoon?
It's been a long time since I hear them.
You know that band?
Know them? I used to see them all the time before I'm a witness.
No way. You like that kind of music?
You don't believe me? Oh, this bag is so big. I can't find anything.
Abigail?
When I was young.
You were in a band?
Sunshine, so sweet.
I love that song. I actually have that vinyl. So I'll be gone next week, but I'll have someone else take care of the study. Okay.
So we have a few questions to discuss. First, how did Nita try to encourage Jade to attend the congregation meeting? Brother Millar, please.
Yeah, we saw at first she invited her in person, she showed her videos, she even sent her a text before the meeting, but that really wasn't motivating Jade to attend the meetings. But then she tried bringing someone else on the study, and not just one person, but multiple people on the study, and that's really what Jade needed to start attending meetings.
Yeah, exactly right. Thank you. Very good. And our second question, why should we invite other publishers to join us on a Bible study? Brother Crenshaw, please.
Well, it helps our student, they become more comfortable with those in the congregation so that when they do go to the Kingdom Hall, they already know people. Because at the end of the day, right, it takes a whole congregation to make a disciple.
Yeah, very true. And Brother Mile.
And because others can help our Bible students in ways that we can't on our own. And that's not because we're insufficient in any way, but only because we're just one person.
Yes, exactly. Sister Millar, please.
And we describe the congregation as a family, and a family has all different kinds of relationships, like siblings, parents, grandparents. So we want all of these relationships for our students, and each person offers something different, and the student needs that variety.
Yes, thank you. Brother Gertens, please.
And Jesus mentioned many of our students are giving up family and friends to become friends with Jehovah. And so building this new family is part of our responsibility to help them to get to know others. And at the end of the video, we noticed how when she wasn't able to conduct the Bible study, she was able to arrange one of these other individuals that she already knew to be able to conduct the study instead of having the kids look for that week.
Yes, excellent point. Brother Velez, please.
We may feel that we know our Bible study well. You know, we prepare, we know what to say, but we'll be surprised. The person we less expect that we bring with us is the one who can have a big impact, a big effect on the person. We can see in the video they have 3 sisters coming before the last one, but this last older sister was the one who made this connection with her. So we never know who's the person who's going to say something and have this impact in the Bible study.
Yes, thank you. And Sister Campbell, please.
And if we do conduct a study, there may be times that we aren't available for the study, like in the video due to being sick or being on vacation. And it's really nice to have a backup Bible teacher, maybe someone who's joined us before. It keeps the study sessions regular for the student, and it helps them to feel even more comfortable with those in the congregation. It also helps them not to become dependent on us as a Bible teacher, but to rely on the congregation for support.
Yes, excellent comments. Thank you all. Now, our third question, we kind of touched on this already, but what common interest did Jade and Abigail share? Brother Henry, please.
Well, they both shared an interest for music. Jade was listening to this some reggae music, a particular band, and when Abigail walked in, she heard this song playing, and you could see that it piqued her interest. So no doubt that has helped establish a common ground between the two of them and just facilitated an easier interchange of thoughts between the two of them.
Yeah, excellent point. Thank you. And Brother and Sister Velez? Oh, no, I'm sorry. Brother Radford.
thought it was nice how evidently Nita didn't know about this connection. She was surprised about it, and that can often be the case, can't it? That we invite someone, then we find a connection. Of course, there could be other instances where we learn about an interest our student has, and we know someone in the congregation who has a similar interest, and we can invite them. But either way, we see how Jehovah uses different ones in the congregation to help our students.
Yeah, that's very true. And Sister Gertens, please.
And we know that Jade and Nita, from seeing other parts of this series, are very different in their interests. And so it was interesting to see how even Nita reacted to Sister Abby sharing that interest with Jade. So it's a good reminder for us that bringing other friends in the congregation can help our students see Jehovah's people from a different angle. And they can see that if someone in the congregation has those interests and loves Jehovah and is faithful, they too can do the same.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. Now, lastly, what skills for the ministry my fellow workers teach you? Let me just hear one comment on this question. Brother Nunez.
So we can learn a lot from our fellow workers. We can learn how to overcome objections, or how to make determinations, or how to offer or conduct Bible studies.
Yes, very nice. Thank you. Thank you all for your well-prepared comments on this. As we can see from the video and from your comments, everyone in the congregation can help us. And a very nice point in our workbook, it says, think of someone in your congregation who could provide the help that you need, and then ask for it. So we have some homework to do. We need to ask our brothers and sisters to help us with our progressive Bible studies. And if we do that, we all can have success and help ones to come into the truth. So thank you. And I will give our meeting back to our chairman, Brother Johnson.
Thank you, Brother Campbell. We appreciate that. Certainly value those beautiful teaching tools, don't we? Of the videos that we have. And we appreciate the homework assignment as well, to find someone that we need to give us something we could use. We now want to give our attention to a demonstration of our Bible study. And to do that, we'll give attention to Sisters Johnson and Cox.
You know, Ashley, I remember when we first met, you mentioned that you had some questions that you just couldn't find any answers to. And the reason I mention this now is because I think you're really going to enjoy the next point in this lesson. Let's look at it. It's point number 4. The Bible can answer our questions.
Great. I'm excited. It looks interesting.
Yes, I think you'll enjoy it. So let's go on. Let's read the first paragraph there. Would you read that for us, please?
Sure. It says, one woman found that the Bible provided answers to questions that had troubled her for many years. Play the video and then discuss the questions that follow.
Thank you. And since we're doing this on Zoom, I think it would be a good idea if we both, hit the play button at the same time, but then I'll mute mine, and that way we'll be like, watching it together.
Okay, yeah, that sounds like it will work.
Okay, ready? Let's go.
Okay. Wow, that was really interesting.
I thought you would enjoy it. It's quite an experience, isn't it? I love the videos in this book. They can really help us visualize something. Mm-hmm. So let's now discuss the questions they have here. They are, in the video, what sort of questions did this woman have, and how did studying the Bible help her? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, she was a teacher, so when she saw disabled children, she knew that they weren't like that because they did anything wrong, but they were just born that way. So she said she knew God could fix things, but why wasn't he?
Yes, it's a good question, isn't it? She said that it just made no sense to her because she knew God was a God of love, so why wasn't he doing anything about it?
Yeah, that's exactly how I feel.
Like this woman, you are certainly not alone in wondering that. But to her surprise, where did she find the answers to her questions?
Well, she said she was helped to look to her own Bible to find the answers.
Yes, and she also said that she was amazed at that. not only did she find the answers to that one particular question, but she said she found answer after answer after answer.
You know, that is actually really amazing to me. I never really knew you could find so many answers from the Bible.
Yes, she was amazed at that. And I can understand how you feel. But did you know that the Bible itself encourages us to ask questions?
No, I didn't know that.
Well, let's read what the Bible has to say about that. In the next paragraph in the book, do you see the scripture Matthew 7:7 cited there?
Yeah, I see.
Okay, let's read that together. Can you look it up in your own copy of the Bible, or tap the scripture and then read it for us, please?
Sure. Okay, tap it here. It says, keep on asking and it will be given you. Keep on seeking and you will find. Keep on knocking and it will be opened to you.
Well, thank you, Ashley. So you see here, the Bible itself encourages us to keep on asking, seeking, knocking to find our answers. And, you know, the woman in the video said that she was taught how to look into her own Bible to find the answers to her questions. You know, and that's exactly what this Bible course is designed to do. Mm-hmm. So tell me, what questions do you have that you think maybe the Bible can answer?
Well, since I was little, I've always wondered why does God allow suffering? We love creation and doing hiking, but wonder, like, will pollution ruin the earth? And with my dad dying, I do worry, and I wonder where he is, what happens after we die.
You know, those are all very good questions, and you deserve to know the answer. And as you continue to study, I think you will be like the woman in the video. You will be just amazed to learn that it is the Bible that can answer our questions. So let's continue on to the next point.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much for that. And a nice demonstration of both how to conduct a Bible study with our new tool, but also in making good use of that, good use of questions. The point you're working on this evening today was on main points made to stand out, which, of course, in the Bible study is kind of nice. Here we have really just one main point, that is the Bible can answer our questions. But yet throughout your presentation, you made sure to ask questions that would drive that point home. The fact that she could find the answers. After reviewing the video, you asked, for example, where did she find the answers she's looking for? So you go back to that main point. And then even there afterwards, highlighting Matthew 7, you highlighted the fact that you want to keep asking and you will find. And highlighting again that the Bible is where that is. And at the same time, all of that, kind of pointing back to the theme of the whole lesson on how can the Bible help you. So the questions you had to do just what our council point mentions. You helped the audience to follow along. You made it clear how those points all related to the objective and the theme. And there was no doubt that she got the main point. She was looking forward to moving forward. So again, thank you for that, and a nice demonstration for us on conducting this study. Well, now we're going to move ahead into our Living as Christians portion of our meeting. But to introduce that, we have Psalm 102 chosen, Assist Those Who Are Weak. So let's enjoy singing together. And give our attention to the governing body update number 8. There's a chance to all review that again together. So Let's go ahead and enjoy this video.
Dear brothers, sisters, faithful children, and interested ones, it is a great pleasure to be with you for this update. We have many good things to share with you, including an update on our response to several major natural disasters. And at the end of this update, it will be a privilege to share with you our reassuring year text for 2022. To begin, though, I have some important facts about COVID-19 vaccines to share with you. Because we love you all very much, and because this is a life and death matter, we have decided to share what we know about this with you. Since June 1st, in the United States, 1,407 publishers have been hospitalized because of COVID-19 or its symptoms. Of these, less than 1% were fully vaccinated. Sadly, in that same time period in the United States, 486 of our brothers died from COVID-19. Of these, less than 1% were fully vaccinated. And our understanding is that the vaccinated individuals who died had serious underlying health problems. These statistics are very sobering. We can also tell you that of more than 22,000 Bethelites and 44,000 special full-time servants in the field who have been vaccinated, we have received only 4 reports of severe adverse reactions that may be linked to the vaccination. But thankfully, it's been reported that all of these are stable and their condition is under control. We share this information with you so you can carefully consider it when making your personal decision regarding vaccination. We feel it would not be loving to withhold these facts from you. As Proverbs 3:27 says, "Do not withhold good from those to whom you should give it." We know it can be difficult to make a wise decision when there are various opinions and conflicting reports that the world provides, perhaps making it hard to know what to believe. But the aforementioned statistics have been collected by our brothers, so we can trust these figures. We hope they will be useful to you. We appreciate that this is not a scientific study, but we can tell you what our brothers have observed. And because we have this information, we want you to know what we know. Of course, we also need to consider the direction provided by the superior authorities. In some lands, governments are enacting laws that all their citizens must be vaccinated. In other lands, it is strongly encouraged. How do we react to such direction? The Remain in God's Love book made a fine point when it said this: "Today, Jehovah allows governments to have some authority, and we should respect them. They organize countries and communities so that they function smoothly and provide people with necessary services. Christians obey the instruction found at Romans 13, 1 through 7. We respect the superior authorities and obey the laws of the country or community where we live. These laws may affect our family, business, or possessions." Also, the study note on Romans 13:5 says this: A Christian submits to human governments when a command does not contradict God's laws. So this is another serious factor that we each should carefully and prayerfully consider in making our decision. As a result of having over 99% of the United States Bethel family fully vaccinated, we've been able to open up more activities within Bethel in accord with New York State regulations. This allowed the Bethel family to have the Gilead meal together, and then the Gilead graduation on September 11. No guests from outside Bethel were present for either occasion. Also, fully vaccinated Bethel family members in the United States have received permission to take personal time to visit family and friends, taking proper COVID-19 precautions while away from Bethel. In fact, as of September 24, over 3,975 fully vaccinated Bethel family members in the United States have traveled during August and September. Upon their return to Bethel, they're put on a form of adjusted quarantine and a few days later are tested for COVID-19. Of these 3,975, we have had just 4 COVID cases. 2 got mild cases of COVID at their destination, and it resolved before they returned to Bethel. The other 2, who tested positive on return, also had minor symptoms that quickly resolved. All 4 have fully recovered. We're happy to report that this arrangement will soon go into effect for our Bethelites at most branches around the world. We're able to do this at branches where more than 90% of the Bethel family are fully vaccinated. Those branches are getting back into a more normal routine. But now, we have a brief update about how our brothers are doing after recent natural disasters in Haiti and in the United States. As reported in JW News, a magnitude 7.2 earthquake struck Haiti on Saturday, August 14. Sadly, 3 witnesses died as a result. Our hearts go out to the families of these ones. The branch office recently provided this report on the relief efforts. The earthquake destroyed approximately 130 of the homes where our brothers were living and damaged another 250. On Monday, August 16, 2 days after the earthquake, tarps arrived for many of our brothers just ahead of the rains of Tropical Storm Grace. Since then, we have distributed over 3 tons of supplies and 28 tons of food to our brothers. Tents, tarps, blankets, mattresses, water filtration kits, solar-powered flashlights, and solar chargers have been distributed. Additionally, volunteers are working hard to evaluate and inspect the homes of our brothers. Although in difficult economic situations themselves, the local brothers in the capital of Port-au-Prince have generously donated tons of food. The United States experienced Hurricane Ida, which made landfall as a Category 4 hurricane on August 29. The storm passed from the Gulf Coast to the Northeast. The branch office reports that as of September 20, 2,788 of our brothers who evacuated are not yet able to return to their homes. it is estimated to be several weeks before the power is restored in some areas. The storm damaged over 1,800 homes of our brothers and destroyed 28 more. In addition, 58 kingdom halls and 4 assembly halls were damaged. Under the direction of the circuit overseers, local brothers and sisters quickly began to stabilize hundreds of homes damaged by the storm. 2 disaster relief committees are providing tarps, materials, food, water, and generators when local supplies are exhausted. All of this activity is being carried out with proper safety standards and appropriate COVID-19 precautions. We are grateful for the hard work of all who are helping with the relief efforts, including all of you who have contributed financially. Thank you for your generosity and kindness. But now, let's discuss our 2022 year text. When the pandemic began, we had no idea it would still be of concern 1.5 years later. It has impacted the economy of many lands. As a result, people, including many of our brothers and sisters, do not have much materially. Some only have meager provisions, including a scarcity of food. It reminds us of faithful David of old. He was not being hounded by a deadly virus, but he was running and trying to hide from jealous King Saul, who was intent on killing David and those with him. Provisions were low. There was very little to eat, and David lost his home for a time, hiding out in caves in the wilderness. While things were very bleak materially, it was at this time that David composed the beautiful song recorded in Psalm 34. Was he distracted from his worship of Jehovah? Was he gloomy and dejected during that difficult time? Well, let's read a few verses from Psalm 34 and see how David was regarding his attitude. Psalm 34, verse 1, I will praise Jehovah at all times. His praise will be on my lips constantly. And then in verse 3, he encouraged others to join him in praising Jehovah. Verse 3, David said, magnify Jehovah along with me. Let us exalt his name together. What a beautiful attitude, despite the hardships he was facing at the time. So many of you, dear brothers and sisters, are struggling economically during this time of pandemic and uncertainty. But the governing body wanted me to share with you especially verse 10 of Psalm 34. Verse 10, even strong young lions have been reduced to hunger, but those seeking Jehovah will lack nothing good. The last part of that verse is the year text for 2022. Those seeking Jehovah will lack nothing good. Psalm 34, verse 10. Now, obviously, as we've been discussing, David was not referring to an abundance of physical sustenance. We remember the 23rd Psalm where David said something similar. There he said, Jehovah is my shepherd, I will lack nothing. The rest of that psalm refers to spiritual blessings enjoyed, even though he admitted he walked, quote, in the valley of deep shadow. Throughout that psalm, he extols the spiritual blessings he enjoyed. He concluded by saying at Psalm 23:6, "And I will dwell in the house of Jehovah for all my days." And that is the prayer of all of Jehovah's faithful servants in these critical times. Dear friends, the coronavirus is not the worst trial to strike out at all mankind, and it won't be the last. We can expect things to deteriorate even further as these last days march on to their end. Economic hardship and other trials will come and go. But like the psalmist, we can agree that the 2022 year text will prove true, spiritually speaking. As Psalm 34:10 states, those seeking Jehovah will lack nothing good. Dear brothers and sisters, we truly and deeply love you all very much. From the world headquarters of Jehovah's Witnesses, this is JW Broadcasting.
What a beautiful update, isn't it? Certainly always we're benefited from just looking at the beautiful love and concern that the governing body has for us. And good reminders as well. And certainly a beautiful year text we look forward to, really reflecting on the blessings that Jehovah does give us. That we truly do lack nothing good. It's the good guidance and direction we get as well. Now we want to move ahead to our Bible study for the week. And to do that, we'll give our attention to Brother Henry and Brother Gertjens, who's reading.
Well, we'd like to give all a warm welcome to the Congregation Bible Study for this week. This week we're continuing in chapter 14, entitled, "This is the Law of the Temple." During the last 3 weeks, we've learned lessons that Ezekiel's temple vision has taught regarding standards that Jehovah has in place for pure worship in ancient times. We've even started to learn lessons that this vision teaches us about Jehovah's standards for pure worship in modern times today. So this week we're going to continue to learn a few more practical lessons that will benefit us all. We're going to learn how this vision portrays Jehovah's blessing on pure worship, and finally do a review of the lessons learned during this chapter. So please feel free to participate as much as you like, make good use of the scriptures, and we are confident that you have numerous spiritual gifts to share with everyone present. With this in mind, we'd like to now ask Brother Bo Gertjens to read paragraph 21.
The priesthood. Ezekiel saw that the inner courtyard was accessible to the priests and Levites by means of gates, like those that allowed the non-priestly tribes to enter the outer courtyard. This was an effective way to remind the men of the priestly class that they too had to meet Jehovah's standards for pure worship. And today, there is no hereditary priesthood among God's servants now, but anointed Christians are told, "You are a chosen race, a royal priesthood." The priests of ancient Israel worshipped in a separate courtyard. Today, anointed Christians are not separated from their fellow worshipers in any physical sense, but they do enjoy a special relationship with Jehovah as his adopted children. At the same time, anointed ones can find useful reminders in Ezekiel's vision. They too, for instance, that the priests were subject to counsel and discipline. All Christians do well to remember that we are part of one flock that serves under one shepherd.
Could you read, please go ahead and read John 10:16 too.
And I have other sheep which are not of this fold. Those too I must bring in, and they will listen to my voice, and they will become one flock, one shepherd.
Thank you very much for your fine reading. The question for paragraph 21, what might anointed Christians learn from the priesthood in Ezekiel's vision? Sister Glory Bellis?
Yes, the anointed can learn that they enjoy a special relationship with Jehovah as adopted children, as is mentioned in Galatians 4:4-6. But at the same time, they know that, same as the priests, they're suggested to counsel and discipline.
Thank you. Brother Phil Johnson.
It was good to note that with the priesthood, they had to meet the same exact standards that everyone else entering the temple did too. So they would get counsel as needed. They were subject to that as well, but they had to keep that same elevated standard that all of Jehovah's servants do.
Very well. Sister Gertrude, Heather.
And in John 10:16, Jesus highlighted the fact that anointed and the other sheep would all worship as one flock. And so we see the emphasis on that single standard of worship, regardless of the hope that one might enjoy.
Very well. Thank you. And focusing on a key word mentioned there in John 10:16, what did Jesus say that those of the other sheep would do, and which applies to both the anointed and the other sheep? Sister Campbell, Jessica?
It says that they would listen to his voice, whether they were the other sheep or not. They're all one flock.
Thank you very much for that. Now, if we look at the image that's after paragraph 23, what details can we perceive in that image? Sister Radford?
Well, we see just a group of brothers and sisters. They are in the Kingdom Hall, happy to see each other. We don't know their hope. And regardless of that, they are happy to attend to the meetings to receive the spiritual food from Jehovah.
Very good. Thank you. The Cox family, this would be Ashley Cox.
And we can see too the outworking there of John 10:16 being one flock. We see the unity of everybody serving under that high standard of pure worship, walking through the lofty gate, as you will, into the Kingdom Hall.
Thank you so much. We're going to continue on and ask Brother Gertrude to read paragraphs 22 and 23.
The chieftain. In Ezekiel's vision, the chieftain is a fairly prominent figure. He is not of the priestly tribe, and in the temple setting, he would have submitted to the lead of the priests. However, he clearly acts as an overseer among the people and assists them in providing sacrifices. So, he is an example for Christian men today who carry a measure of responsibility in the congregation. After all, Christian elders, including traveling overseers, need to remain submissive to the anointed, faithful slave. Elders work hard to help God's people offer their sacrifices of praise at Christian meetings and in the ministry. And elders may also take note of the way Jehovah rebuked Israel's chieftains for abusing their power. Likewise, elders do not expect to be above counsel and correction. On the contrary, they cherish any opportunity to be refined by Jehovah so that they can be more effective as shepherds and overseers. Jehovah will continue to provide capable, loving overseers in the paradise earth to come. Many elders today are in effect receiving training in how to be helpful, capable shepherds in paradise. Is it not exciting to contemplate how such men will prove to be a blessing in the new world? Our understanding of Ezekiel's vision, like that of other restoration prophecies, may become clearer in Jehovah's due time. Perhaps some aspects will see a thrilling application in the future, a fulfillment we could barely fathom at present. Time will tell.
Thank you very much for your fun reading again. Can you please also go ahead and read 1 Peter 5:1-3?
Therefore, as a fellow elder, a witness of the sufferings of the Christ, and a share of the glory that is to be revealed, I make this appeal to the elders among you. Shepherd the flock of God under your care, serving as overseers, not under compulsion, but willingly before God, not for love of dishonest gain, but eagerly, not lording it over those who are God's inheritance, but becoming examples to the flock.
Very well. The A question, what lesson might Christian elders today draw from the chieftain described in Ezekiel's vision? Brother Nunez, go ahead.
So even though the chieftain was a prominent figure in the vision, they too had to submit themselves to the priest, even though they helped out in making sacrifices. So it reminds us how Christian elders, traveling overseers, also need to remain submissive to the faithful slave.
Thank you. Brother Radford, Alexis.
It's lovely how the Apostle Peter, set the right example, didn't he, in that text, because he started the text saying, therefore, as a fellow elder. So he included himself in this counsel about shepherding the flock of God, not under compulsion, but willingly. So all of us can really apply this this information. Just as the paragraph says, these are examples for us. We're not looking for types and antitypes, but we can get examples from all these things that we're seeing in this temple vision.
Excellent. Sister Millie, Cynthia.
And there in Ezekiel chapter 45, verses 16 and 17, we see how the chieftains were described as helping the people to provide their sacrifices. And so we appreciate that same thing in our elders today. They work hard to support us in our worship to Jehovah and to have a productive share in our ministry.
Fine. Thank you. Brother Justin Millar.
Yeah, and also too at Ezekiel 45:9, we get a little insight as to how Jehovah felt when the chieftains abused their power. In fact, he rebuked them in this. So this really could serve as a nice warning for elders to not take advantage of the power that they do have, but instead to continue to be righteous and just in how they deal with the sheep that are under their care.
And Sister Millard, Barbara.
And also in our read scripture in 1 Peter, Peter reminds his fellow elders who the owner of the flock is several times. He said, shepherd the flock of God, we're serving willingly before God, and then he calls it God's inheritance. So just like a literal shepherd would of course look to the owner of the sheep for any correction or adjustments that need to be made, our brothers too, they look to Jehovah to be molded into better and more effective shepherds.
Thank you. Brother Omar Willis.
In this paragraph, I have a very powerful statement. Elders do not expect to be above counsel and correction. That made me thinking when we see 1 Peter 5 in verse 3 say, not lording it over those who are God's inheritance, but become an example to the flock. So the elders, we're just part of the flock. We're not higher than the flock, we're just part of the flock. And many times we receive counsel and correction, and we have to be willing and happy to accept it.
Thank you. And when we think about what's mentioned there in 1 Peter 5:2, where it emphasizes shepherd the flock of God under your care. When it comes to accountability, who are the elders accountable ultimately for the way they treat the flock of God? Brother Johnson, Phil?
Well, it emphasizes that again, it's God's flock that's under our care. So it's like Jehovah has given a trust to the elders to care well for the sheep. So because of that, the trust that's given, we want to make sure that we're applying good counsel to ourselves as well as helping the individuals that we care for.
Mm-hmm. Very well. Brother Radford.
We see that a lesson repeated in Hebrews 13, verse 17, where Jehovah actually gives the warning that they will render an account. So we want to make it easier for them, but at the end of the day, they will render an account for their works.
Thank you. And what lesson do we learn from Ephesians 4:11 and 12 about the body of elders that Jehovah and Jesus are using in the creation to guide and help his sheep? Brother Campbell, Matt.
It's a nice thought here because we know that every elder has a different background, has different skills, has different parts of their overseerial work. So in this verse it says, he gave some as apostles, prophets, evangelizers, shepherds, and teachers. So we know in our congregation today we have many different elders that perform various different parts of the work, but they're all shepherds and they're all taking care of the congregation.
Excellent, thank you. The big question, what may occur in the future? Brother Kenneth Cox.
Yeah, like the last sentence says, time will tell, but we know that in Psalms 45 and verse 16, there will be princes appointed in all the earth. So it may be that elders are receiving training now to be helpful, capable shepherds in the future. And we see that that's why we should look for every opportunity to continue to refine, let Jehovah refine us, because we know that he can use us further in the future.
Indeed, thank you for sharing that. Brother AJ.
Yeah, just as we appreciate all the work the elders, the shepherds do in the congregation, as the paragraph says, it's exciting to know that we'll have such men in the world as well. And like I said, it is a blessing to know that we'll be taken care of as well.
Thank you. And Brother Campbell.
I was also thinking it's a good reminder for elders today and also ministerial servants. Elders looking for opportunities to train younger men to step up and hand over certain responsibilities in the congregation. And then, of course, the younger men to look for ways that they can take on those responsibilities and show that they are also being able to be trustworthy and handle assignments. So trainee and the trainers can both participate in this work that will help in the future too.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Now we'll continue on to our next subheading, Jehovah's Blessing on Pure Worship. Paragraphs 24 and 25. The reading, please. The versions.
In conclusion, let us recall the one great event that takes place in Ezekiel's vision. Jehovah comes to the visionary temple and he promises his people that he will remain there for as long as they adhere faithfully to his standards for pure worship. What effect would Jehovah's presence have on his people and in their land? The vision describes divine blessings by using two reassuring prophetic pictures. One, a river flows from the temple sanctuary, bringing life and fertility to the land. And two, the land is divided up in an orderly, precise way, with the temple and its grounds clearly in a central position. How may we understand those passages today? After all, we live in a time when Jehovah has entered, refined, and approved a far more sacred system of worship, the great spiritual temple. We will discuss these two prophetic pictures in chapters 19 to 21 of this publication.
Thank you so much for your fine reading. The question, how did Ezekiel's vision portray Jehovah's blessing on his people as they adhered to pure worship? Brother Crenshaw, Trey.
Well, there in Ezekiel chapter 43, we read in verse 4 that the glory of Jehovah would enter the temple, and so that means Jehovah was approving of their pure worship, and that alone is an amazing blessing. And in verse 7, he says that he would stay with them forever. But he does make it clear in verses 8 and 9 that he would not tolerate those who do not uphold his standards of pure worship. So as long as they remain faithful and upheld those standards of pure worship, Jehovah would be with them, and he would continue to bless them.
Excellent, thank you. And what two prophetic pictures are used? Brother Mancilla, Joel?
One of the prophetic pictures used is the river that flows from the temple sanctuary. And the blessing of this is that it brings life and fertility to the land.
Very well, thank you. Sister Arabelle Bradford.
Yeah, and the second one is that the land is divided up in an orderly, precise way, with the temple and its grounds is in the central position.
Thank you. And what does the passage there in Malachi 3:1-4 help us to understand with regard to the current state of pure worship and what Jehovah has done by means of his Son? Brother Johnson, Phil.
Well, you're talking about the cleansing of Jehovah's temple, or preparing the way, and certainly this vision goes right along with that. We've seen how Jehovah's standards on his worship has been elevated now, and we're seeing how he's already refined it and improved what we have. So we treasure that, and of course we look forward to doing what we can to contribute.
Indeed. Thank you so much. But thank you for all your excellent participation so far. And now we're going to consider the review box and kind of look forward to hearing your personal expressions, because the title of it is Your Place in Pure Worship. So the first question there, review question, is what practical lessons did the exiled Jews likely draw from Ezekiel's temple vision? Brother Trey Crenshaw.
One lesson could be that since Jehovah's Temple, this house, was on a high mountain, it would have taught them that pure worship should be exalted and held high above anything else.
Indeed. Sister Millie, Cynthia.
Another one of the aspects that we considered was the lofty gates, and so it reminded the Jews in that time that Jehovah had lofty standards for entry into his house, and that those standards had to be upheld, and he hated hypocrisy.
Thank you. Brother Rafael Nunez.
One also was the perimeter wall, so Jehovah really showed that, or they should have understood that false worship needed to be very far away from Jehovah's pure, clean worship.
Thank you. Brother Radford, Alexis.
And the measurements, it seemed that this angelic copper appearing man was measuring everything, wasn't it? And that was really to stress the importance of Jehovah's standards. We can't just worship Jehovah how we might feel we should worship him. It has to be according to his standards.
Indeed. Thank you. The second question, in what ways does the temple vision apply in our own time? Brother Crenshaw, Trey.
Well, with regards to the perimeter wall, keeping any sort of form of religious uncleanness away from our pure worship, in 1919, the faithful and discreet slave was appointed by Christ, and they have done a great job of keeping these things away from pure worship. And one application of this is that we would not even conduct secular business within the congregation.
Thank you. Brother Zach Godfrey.
And if we take notice of the passage where we see the angel had taken many measurements and was very thorough in his measurements and measuring every part of the temple there, we see that it demonstrates a very much Jehovah's adherence to his standards. And what this means for us is we see that today we live in a world where that's not important to people. Even to people who are religious, oftentimes they view Jehovah's standards as lax, or they try to create their own standards of what they think or how they think worship of God should be. So we would never want to develop that attitude today. We know that influence is strong, but we want to make sure that we are adhering closely to the standards that Jehovah has set for us.
Thank you. Sister Heather Gergens.
And also the accuracy and precision of those measurements helps us to have confidence that Jehovah will be as accurate and fulfilling in his promises in the future as well, since he is a God of precision.
Indeed. Thanks. The final question related to the box lessons from Ezekiel's temple vision, and perhaps we can ask to put that up on the screen. The question is, as you look over the diagram of Ezekiel's visionary temple, what lessons would you like to apply in your own worship? Brother Andrew Milley?
Well, just like the temple is on a very high mountain, I like to give pure worship the highest priority in my life. We live in a world of distractions, and the distractions keep increasing and are becoming more accessible. So just being consistent with my worship and continuing to improve it is something I look forward to.
Thank you. Sister Aubrey Miller?
I liked the idea of the many dining rooms around the temple so that worshipers could enjoy a meal with Jehovah. And it just reminds me of how much Jehovah loves hearing our sacrifices of praise and our expressions of faith. And then too, providing us with spiritual food. So I never want to lose sight of how precious these meals with Jehovah are.
Indeed. Thank you. Brother Campbell.
Yeah, I also appreciated the dining rooms as well, because we know if we go over to a friend's house, oftentimes we prepare a dish and we want to bring it and we want to eat it with them. So the same is true when we attend the meeting and sharing it with Jehovah. And in times like this, when we're using Zoom, some may have anxiety or increased anxiety about giving a comment, but we want to make sure that we take the time to prepare well. Even if we're a brother giving a prayer, we want to prepare that and share it with Jehovah. So that's one thing that I want to put into practice with my own worship.
Thank you. And the Cox family, that would be Kenneth Cox.
Yeah, and it's nice too. We see the three outer gates and the three inner gates are identical. So it reminds us that Jehovah's standards are the same, no matter what responsibility that I might have or what circumstance I might find myself in. Just remembering that doesn't change Jehovah's standards. Nothing changes Jehovah's standards. So it's a nice reminder and something that I want to keep as a reminder.
Thanks for sharing that. Brother Ortiz, Eric.
Yeah, and just keeping in mind these lofty gates. You know, the world is going from worse to worse. You know, keep getting worse. So we are not going to lower our standards, just like Jehovah does not lower his standards for his worship. So I just want to keep that in mind.
Thank you. Brother AJ Lugo.
We can clearly see how Jesus viewed the temple there in Mark 11, where he's throwing out, overturning tables. So do I have the same view as Jesus of, my meetings? And yeah, we may not be conducting business during the meeting, but like the paragraph in 17, it says there's mundane things, right? Small things that can seemingly distract us from paying attention. Am I allowing these small things from allowing me to fully give my full attention to the meetings?
Very nice. Thank you for sharing that. And Sister Ashley Cox.
And really meditating on the eternal blessing, the stream trickling from the temple sanctuary. Although is not our motivation to give Jehovah worship, blessings aren't a motivation, but meditating on those blessings certainly builds appreciation for pure worship, for true worship, and that appreciation can then strengthen our stronghold of obedience and righteousness. So continuing to remember that Jehovah's way is the best way, his pure worship is to be exalted, is then a motivating factor for me to do my best each day to uphold his standards.
Thank you for those reminders. Excellent. Well, we'd like to thank everyone for your well-prepared, well-thought-out, encouraging comments. No doubt they have turned out to be a spiritual gift to all present. And there isn't any doubt that a review of the temple vision has taught us numerous practical lessons that can help us continue to serve Jehovah in a way that is acceptable to him in these difficult last days. So we'd like to now give our attention back to the chairman.
We have certainly appreciated a beautiful program today, haven't we? What do you get to take home from it? From the start, we talked about some of the victories, the miraculous victories and promises, and how Jehovah strengthened the Israelites then and fought for them. A certainly beautiful example for us as we deal with our own challenges, and as we look forward or look ahead to other challenges, we can trust that same strength from Jehovah and miraculous assistance at times too. We have nice reminders of the value of bringing different brothers and sisters in our Bible studies, making good use of their skills, and how sometimes it may be ones that we don't think of that can contribute the most and that reach the heart of those that we study with. Excuse me. And two, that memory body update, as we reflect on that, certainly a lot for us to consider, isn't there? And trying to protect ourselves, keep ourselves and our dear brothers and sisters safe during COVID, but also we reflect on the relief work that's taking place, how in spite of that, brothers are keeping each other safe and caring for them. And certainly as well, that beautiful year text that we look forward to is going to keep our faith strengthened and help us reflect on always the spiritual blessings that we have. And too, in our Bible study, nice conclusion of section 3 in our book, wasn't it, on the restoration of pure worship promised, and how that nice vision helps us to see how pure worship has been restored and the part that we have in it. And as we talked about even our own goals, some of those comments brought out how we want to contribute, how we benefit personally from that beautiful vision that maintains those high, lofty standards. And again, beautiful blessing that we have to benefit from that. So we thank everyone for your parts this afternoon as we enjoyed this nice meeting. Certainly all of us welcomely benefited, and we're rejoicing how Jehovah's continued to care for us. To conclude then, we want to give our voices to song number 103, Shepherds, Gifts and Men, and then we're going to Joel and Zia close in prayer.